Hello students. Archana Gayatri, Srinivasan, Dhananjay. A very good evening to all of you students in this particular Super 30 particular series and session. Ambika, good evening to all of you students. The students, here we are now for this ABC particular part. Herein, I must tell you that last particular 2 days or so, this week primarily was not the best of the week for me, primarily because I'm already stuck with COVID students. So in this particular context, this entire week has not been that great for me. But the best part is just that the COVID particular scalability has reduced now. But still it is on the positive side. So obviously just maybe a day or more, the care which I'll just taking across it. So that the length of the session students is going on lower side. So that is one of the things which primarily which has been there. Nevertheless, students, herein I will still be ensuring to a fact that uh, maybe on tomorrow or day after tomorrow onwards, we'll try to stretch it up and try to cover up the lost ground the best that probably I can do it herein. And thereafter, students will be there. Because ABC was an important particular discussion which was supposed to take place. That is the reason why students herein. I'm now doing with all of you the ABC part. Good evening to all of you students. So students, on the context of ABC, I'll just very quickly will run through this particular proposition now for all of you. In the context of ABC students, if you all will see very carefully, you will find that from 30 marks is what we are going to for an intelligent ABC analysis, primarily so that you are in a position to wrap up your last particular revision that you will intend to do as far as your ABC is concerned. So your last particular revision is what primary students is the target at this particular point of time. Manu recovered to an extent primarily, but yes, it is still a positive state of COVID here, and unfortunately here in in Mumbai, the COVID blast has taken place from the last 10 days or so, and unfortunately I also got stuck on that. But I will just be trying to stretch up students. I think at least there is a bit of strength in this context that I could easily stretch it up to the best that I can do it, and I will try to wrap it up, students, in this particular case, your particular portion. Coming on this particular ABC May 23 attempt, students, let's try to take across. First is on the international taxation front. Students, on the international taxation front, which has been there, 30 marks. This is the area of challenge about for the many students who are facing as to, sir, how to do it and from where to do it. Please take a note of the way to deal with it. Students, you will first now will be directly jumping into section number 9 in this case. Generally, we start with the residential status. Yes, residential status is required, but please ensure that the residential status particular part which has been there has been done on a later side in this case. So students, over here, section 9 is where the entire stretch needs to be there. Rajul. In this context, students, please ensure on one particular thing. As far as the May 23 attempt is concerned, considering what was targeted in the last attempt, students, for sure, in this particular context, I strongly feel in this particular context. So here in this context, students, 911 is one of the most important area for your 911 students happens to be one of the most important area for your examination. 911 is most important area, students, over here, and I will always say that most important is the business connection this time for May 23 attempt. I'm talking about it. Indirect transfer, students, yes, it is there, but if it is possible for all of you, indirect transfer, students, rather than doing the theory will take time. Students, indirect transfer, rather than doing the theory part, my suggestion would be to directly target a practical question. There are many practical questions which are, you would have done it. If I have to go with my capsule book, if those who would have referred it, or the PDF which I may have shared, the Barbara NC dot question, students, is what directly you refer it, students. Barbara NC dot. See, you have to be smart enough now to handle this thing at this particular point of time. The last revision, students, of DT has to be a blend of both. You cannot do the entire theory and then select. You cannot do entire theory and don't revise practical. At the same time, you cannot revise entire practical and don't do theory. So the last revision of DT in those difficult particular position that you would be in a day before examination, even a day before examination, students, the entire suggestion to all of you is this, that please do a smart study of this particular area. So my suggestion would be 911 when you do in the ABC, business connection, students, would be the two things which are being there. You cannot be here business connection, students. There is nothing which is important. Everything is important. What is there in the business connection, students? Two things are there. One is on the exclusion side of the business connection. Do you remember that what are excluded in the business connection and what is included in the business connection? Included side has got two more event, students, if you can recall. One is about the agent giving rise to business connection, and another is the significant economic presence. So please do ensure to deal with this particular revision. Theory revision is only required to be done. Don't do the practical part of it. There is no practical. There are many small questions which are there, irrelevant. You will waste your time in the process. That is point number one. Thereafter, students, the other sections are small, equally important. Don't take any chance. 912, which is for the salary part. Salary, students, if it is possible for all of you, in this context, Banu, just pay attention. I think you will be in a position, I'm speaking across it, so you will know about the same. Salary particular part, students, as you people can know, it is a simpler thing, but don't do this. But please ensure when you do salary, you do this exemption also. This is very important for your examination. 1014, you remember 1014 and 1016. Many cases you can say, sir, what is 1014, 1016? The 1014 is where the foreign citizen who is there and who is posted with a particular consulate or a foreign embassy for whom the foreign government is paying the salary. So that particular foreign citizen will be eligible for the exemption. There is a second exemption of 1066, which is a short stay exemption, 90 days criteria. Do this, although I must say, don't waste much of time, but please do this for the reason why I don't make this thing. For last attempt, they have targeted 1016. But since you are doing this, hardly it will take you 30 seconds to wrap it up, students. At least there would be a closure on the part of 912. Yes, Rajesh. The next particular part, students, that you all can see over here in this context is in respect of the royalty and the FTS. Dividend, royalty, FTS, and this one. Students, frankly speaking, I find certain very important particular directly a question has to be what has to be solved. Instead of doing theory, students, please do practicals on that. There are couple of practical questions which are there already in your Super 60 as well. I think Super 60 access, which is already there for all of you in this case. So if the Super 60 PDF, students, is already there for all of you, my only suggestion to all of you is this, that please do ensure students to deal with what? The Super 60 questions as well. And if you ask me, sir, which is the question? So the next one, students, is 914 for dividend, 915, 916. This time, students, a full-fledged practical question, and 917. 914 is for dividend, 915 is for interest, 916 is for royalty, and the last one, 917, students, is for the FTS. Time being premium, you have to be as relevant as possible, students. At the most, students, what you can do, the strategy has to be like this. Strategy, students, to decode this particular part is deemed accrual part. Do revise. One is the deemed accrual, when these income is deemed to have accrued in India. So deemed accrual, students, as you know, for dividend deemed accrual happens when the Indian company is paying the dividend income in the hands of the non-resident, deemed to have accrued. For the royalty, FTS, and the fees for technical service, interest, royalty, and fees for technical service, for these three income, students, the deemed accrual depends on the who is the payer of the amount. Government of India, if they are the payer, these income are always deemed to accrued. The remaining case of resident or the non-resident who are the payer of these amount, then the deemed accrual will happen only if that the payer is making the payment in respect of business or source situated in India. So therefore, deemed accrual, please revise it, and thereafter I'm marking certain questions for all of you students. Certain questions which I'm just marking for all of you, so far as students, the deemed accrual is so far as your final revision in this particular context is concerned. So students, over here, if you all will see very carefully, the question that I'm marking for all of you in this case from Super 60, it is also there. These questions are also there in the capsule part. Students, in the Super 60 part, the questions which are being marked are so likely that they can be there as far as your examinations are concerned. So here it goes, students, in this context, the questions which are being marked over here. Question number 41. Question number 41, students. Question number question number 41, students. Question number 41. Question number 38. These two questions, 38 and 41. Fine. Apart from that, students, the royalty and computer software, this particular part, please do ensure. In fact, if you remember, I have taken you through the equalization levy as a concept also. It should be dealt with the equalization levy as well. So equalization levy, students, you will do the revision of this, revision of theory. That has to be done because there are multiple things. And when you do the revision of theory, please do ensure to focus also on the due date plus the penalty plus the interest. These three things: the due date plus the penalty plus the interest. Okay. So now, students, herein, so in this particular context, the moment you are through with this particular part, royalty, FTS, in this context, royalty and computer software, in this situation, here you can directly now jump to, students, the case study which is there in your Super 60 as well. This is one of the most expected questions, students, which we have also have discussed. And as you all are aware in this regard, which is question number 35. Question number 35, which is in the form of an MCQ, and question number 36, which is in the form of a case study. At least go through the same. That will help you to really negotiate this entire approach, 35 and 36. So this is primarily how you will deal with this particular scenario. This is how, students, you are going to deal with this particular scenario so far as the royalty computer service, computer software is concerned. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. So 914, 915, 916, this is precisely how you're going to deal with it and wrap it up your final revision so far as section 9 is concerned. Thereafter, students, you have over here the non-resident sports person. Non-resident sports person. Here you don't do the practical, you only do theory, students. Sports person. So non-resident sports person has got two things which is to be considered over here. As you all are aware, for the non-resident sports person, students, the two things that which are being there over here in this context, students. So here, as you all are aware, 115 BBA plus do ensure with 194E plus do ensure with 194E. And one thing I'm just repeating for all of you students, which is very much known to all of you, that whenever the payee is a non-resident or a foreign company, then students, what happens? Payee is a non-resident or foreign company, then what happens, students? The rate of TDS or TCS, students, plus what? Surcharge, students, surcharge if applicable. If applicable, keep that in mind. How do you know the surcharge would be applicable? That will depend upon whether the amount which has been paid, does it exceed the threshold of 1 crore or 5 crores or 10 crores as the case may be, which is for the foreign company I'm talking about it. And plus mandatory HEC. Mandatory HEC at 4%. Mandatory HEC at 4%. So rate of TDS or TCS plus the surcharge if applicable plus what? Mandatory HEC at 4%, students. This is precisely how you are going to deal with this particular point now in this context. Fine, students. So this is how, students, just keep that in mind. Otherwise, it's only the theory, students. No practical needs to be referred, only theory. Don't waste time on those practicals. I'm very much confident that you will easily crack it. The theory is only that needs to be done. Come to DTAA, students. Topic on DTAA. In the DTAA topic, students, primarily, ideally you should directly capture to the practical questions in the DTAA. Ideally, students, you should capture the practical question. But my suggestion to all of you for theory part, here the theory particular part is the three theories which I just want all of you to do. One is the rule number 115. Second is the foreign tax credit rule. Even if that is skipped, that is still fine. But at least rule 128, foreign tax credit. The third one, students, in this case is, I think that concept, if you can recall, there is one concept that you may be aware. The purpose of DTAA. Purpose of DTAA, students. Students, in one of the purpose, because this is an important MCQ question, one of the purpose of the DTAA after the amendment of Finance Act 2020, is also, students, one of the purpose of DTAA after the amendment of Finance Act 2020 is also to ensure that there is no double non-taxation. There is no double non-taxation apart from the other purpose which are already there. So just keep that particular point in mind. In the theory, students, there is another small theory which is there. Meaning of the term used in the treaty. This can also be an important theory question. These are hardly 2 minutes or 1 minute reading. Meaning of the term used in the treaty. Like for example, students, over here, what happens is that a term which has been defined in the treaty, but it is not defined in the act. Then what happens, students? It is a treaty definition that will prevail over the act definition, because not act definition, because in act the definition is not there at all. So therefore, what happens, students? The treaty only will apply because there is no definition in the act. If there is no definition in the treaty, but there is a definition in the act of that term, then the act definition will prevail in this case, because there is no definition in the treaty so far as the term which is used in the treaty is concerned. And the last point, number 3, students, is if there is the term which is defined both in the treaty as well as in the act, students, in that case the term of the treaty will prevail over the term which is defined in the act. And that is the reason why, remember that equalization levy question that we were discussing in that case study, which is, I suppose, the equalization levy question number 35, you will find there is a article number 12 royalty definition extract which is given in that question. And therefore, do we go as per the royalty definition in the treaty, or do we go as per the royalty definition in the act? That becomes the issue under consideration. So our conclusion, students, finally was that no, if there is a definition in the treaty, then that definition will prevail over the definition of the act. That is probably what we have done it in this case. This is what it is. Now on the practical question, students, couple of questions. I think you can select two good questions. Select two good questions. I'm leaving up to you, students. Select two good questions, and only that should be sufficient enough to wrap it up. Select two good questions, students. That should be sufficient enough to wrap it up. Okay, so therefore that is what it is as far as DTW is concerned. One last point, students, which I just want to highlight upon on this particular part, so far as this is concerned. One last point, students. Please ask me the question, students. Just hold on. Let me first complete. My flow of thoughts are very critical at this stage. So just hold on to the query. Once this 30 marks is over, at that point of time of the non-resident, if you have to ask some questions, then only you ask me the questions. Okay. Students, just keep one particular point in mind, because now just pay attention to this particular point. Remember, students, the treaty benefit that you are getting it, is in respect of taxes which is in the nature of income tax. Taxes which are in the nature of income tax. There could be a particular question that could be raised in the examination where they can provide you the foreign country like USA, wherein both the state government as well as the central government, both of them are imposing the respective taxes, state as well as center. So just to refresh to your mind, if this is the case, say the foreign income is 1 lakh, I have earned in USA. Okay, now the federal tax, which is the central tax, federal income tax, the federal tax, students, which is central income tax in USA, is say around 15,000 rupees on this 1 lakh rupee. And the state tax, students, which is there, which is a state government income tax, is say rupees 5,000. And they can give you, apart from these are in the nature of income tax, but then there can also be like social security tax. Now do you get a credit in the foreign tax credit? Do you get any credit of a tax which is other than an income tax? Do you get a credit of a tax which is other than an income tax? Answer is no. So if here is, say for example, this is 2,000, you will disregard completely. So now the question is, what is a foreign rate? Foreign rate, because foreign rate is important. Foreign rate has to be compared with the Indian rate. Whichever is lower, finally will be the answer. So which is the particular foreign rate? How to calculate? Please add the two. 20,000 is the total tax that you will consider it, and therefore on 1 lakh of the income you are paying 20,000. So how much is the tax which is there? 20%. Then you will determine the Indian tax. How you calculate the Indian tax? By total income including the foreign income, thereafter calculating the tax liability till HEC, and that tax liability till HEC is divided by the total income, and you get the percentage. So therefore, students, that will be compared with the Indian rate. Lower of the two, students, whatever is the lower of the two amount in this context, this lower of the two amount is lower rate is what would be applied on the foreign income which is subject to double taxation in both the country. That lower rate will be applied on the foreign income which is subject to double taxation in both the country. I hope that this particular point is well taken by all of you. So this much is what probably you will have to just look into it. DTAA, through with this one. Thereafter you go to transfer pricing, students. In the transfer pricing topic, transfer pricing, students, I will suggest you, it is the practical and the theory. I'll just mark you, students, the practical part. Don't waste much of time in the theoretical part. Here in the practical, primarily which you will look into it in this context. Here in, students, on the methods, this time, last time they have targeted the cost plus method. This time chances are very high of the resale price method. Resale price method, students. Resale price method, chances are very high. Probably other than that, in this context, students, in this particular context, you will also look into the arithmetic mean, and for that you will refer that NJA question, because in the, remember that in Super 60 there was this question of the notified jurisdictional area. In that there were two comparables. Cup method was applicable. So therefore the ALP which we have determined on the basis of the cup method, the ALP that we have determined on the basis of the cup method, our conclusion, students, was what, students, in this case? The conclusion was this, that the ALP which was determined as per the cup method, students, in this particular case, we have said that 2 ALP, because there are two comparables, 2 ALP as per the cup method. You then take the average, and now therefore whether the average, will it be compared with the transfer price, and then the difference between the two, whether you will check whether this difference exceed 3% of the tolerance band, 3% of the transfer price. Will you check that? Answer is no. You never do that when it comes to the NJA. So if you are already comfortable with this one, you can skip this question. But if you haven't touched upon this, then you may refer this question. You select whether you do want to keep this question for your final analysis or not, question number 42 of Super 60, or else you can leave it. Students, just remember one particular point over here. If it is a case for comparable size, students, the moment the comparable size touches 6 or it goes above, the moment the comparable size touches 6 or it goes above, directly you fall into the other method, which is that thing, range concept. But there is an MCQ question which was asked in your ICI material, which is that if the profit split method is applicable, then students, in this case, even if the comparable size is 6 or above, still in that particular case, we will follow only the arithmetic mean. That is what that particular point says. So that is also one of the point which you have to consider it. The third particular angle, students, is about the secondary adjustment. One question, secondary adjustment, students, which you will have to take into account. And one important aspect is the settlement. How you pay the tax? You have to pay the tax, no? One-time settlement, students. So one-time settlement also, students, you know, these are all practicals, huh? So one-time settlement also. So therefore, the question, I think the Vishnu polyfibers question is very popular question, wherein in your book also you may have done this thing. Please select that question. 18% plus 12% flat plus 4% HEC. That exactly what you are going to touch upon. Secondary adjustment is also to be done in this. The next one is a thin capitalization, practical again. Select one question and that is all of it. Don't do theory and all the stuff, not relevant at this stage. One question needs to be done of thin capitalization. These are the practicals which you need to consider it very carefully. So far as transfer pricing is concerned, on the last revision, and the theoretical part, equally important because theory is also bombarded. Students, always keep in mind the theoretical part which you will deal with it would be first has to be the APA, Advanced Pricing Agreement. The next one is the documentation part. The documentation, which is the documentation requirement of the master file, the country by country reporting, and the local file. So these are the documentation particular part which has been there. APA documentation, that is the second thing. And now the third particular part, students, if you can see, is the dispute resolution, the dispute resolution panel, DRP. These are the three things, students, that you will have to take into account. And last but not the least, penalties. So there are a list of penalties, like if you don't file the transfer pricing report, in this case, what will be the penalty? If there is a additions which has been made in the transfer pricing, then the additions would be considered as a underreporting of income. However, there is an exception to that. That exception primarily I'll touch upon the base when I do the penalty in this coming week in this context. So APA, documentation, DRP, and the penalties. These are the four particular aspects which has been there in this context. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. So these are what transfer pricing, students, is all about. That much is sufficient. Practical, just keep in mind these are the things. The resale price method practical, students, if you all are aware, we have done in the question, and those who are yet wondering, you can ask me in the group, primarily in the group that you are there. There is a ICI module question. If you can just let me know the name of it. What is the name of the question on the resale price method that was being discussed? The name of the question, students, in that particular, if you can let me know, students, in this context. Darshan, in the next week I'll do this. In this context, if you can just let me know, students, in this regard. One question is there on the resale price method, which is also covered in your module, which we have also touched upon in capsule. So please do give me the name, and thereafter this is all of it. The next topic, very important for your this attempt, because GAR topic was not been touched upon, and the GAR is always an important one. Students, my suggestion is that do only the case studies. Case studies. Theory, students, the basic theory everyone can do. Basic theory, students, I will suggest you till the primary test. Till the primary test. Secondary test, it becomes difficult for the students to digest it because of the fact that the length is very huge. Like for example, there has to be an impermissible avoidance agreement in which the tax benefit is more than 3 crores. When the GAR provision is applicable, when there is an impermissible avoidance agreement and the tax benefit is more than rupees 3 crores. Now, what is impermissible avoidance agreement? It requires satisfaction of two tests. Primary test, which is that the main purpose of the arrangement was to obtain the tax benefit. Main purpose. The problem lies on the secondary test, because the secondary test, primarily the tainted element test, which is a secondary test, it has got various branches in this. If you want to do a cursory particular look, you can do that, but because many things gets there is a lot of synchronization of many things. Ideally students, my suggestion would be for you is this, that those who don't have much of grip on the secondary test, the best recourse for all of you would be that you directly do the practicals thereafter. The case studies which you would have done it, which you have touched upon it, that is what should be the approach. Those who have already done the secondary test properly, for them, any case, you can directly, first you can quickly revise it in 5 minutes and then you can move on to the case studies. But those who are not comfortable, please don't leave this topic GAR, because this is definitely going to come in the exam. For all the students in this context, you will have to then touch upon, do the primary test and immediately switch over to the case studies in this context to cover up the GAR. The theory part of it, students. In the theory part, students, the important theory which has been there, two important theory, if not more. If you don't have time, students, then at least two you will always do it. One is the model convention theory. Model convention, students, which is the first one. And the second one, students, is the BEPS. In the BEPS, students, I told you earlier, I am repeating this point now again. In the BEPS particular part, students, you will ensure to do one thing, that you don't have to by heart anything. You just need to visualize that, okay, this is the BEPS. The BEPS has put up this concern. So what is the action plan? Action plan number is this. Even though the number is not known, still it is particular fine. But at least you should know, students, that what is the impact in the domestic law. Like for example, they talked about the thin capitalization part is coming out of the BEPS. If you see the transfer pricing documentation, country by country reporting, master file, local file, again, those are the invention due to the BEPS recommendation. And so on and so forth, like business connection definition, wherein the agent today, if he is playing a principal role which leads to the conclusion of the contract, even then that leads to the business connection at this particular point of time. So that is also the avatar of the BEPS recommendation. So is the case with the equalization levy. So that is exactly the point, students. So better is in the BEPS part, try to see this particular plan, what is the impact that has happened in the domestic law. This is what probably in this case, the theoretical has to be addressed so far as this is concerned. And this is what would cover, students, your 30 marks of your stake. Now after this, students, in this case, the residential status. I will now put the residential status primarily for the individual and the foreign company. Residential status for the individual and foreign company. So do it towards the end, because you will have the necessary pace, and maybe that some question that you may have seen may have that level of interplay, and this will always help you. So residential status at the end, students, you will do, and therefore I'm putting as point number 6 over here, in which case the individual and the foreign company only needs to be touched upon. And as far as the individual is concerned, please focus on that amendment of the Finance Act 2020, wherein the Indian citizen or the person of Indian origin, the visit, remember the visit particular part, in that case there is this 120 days thing which is came into picture, and then thereafter this was the first thing, and the second one is about the Indian citizen who is not liable to tax in the foreign country. So not liable to tax in the foreign country. So these are the two parts. Here in any case, the poem part, my suggestion, students, would be just always go with the kind of practical problem, if one practical question you can see here, one practical question that you can see over here on the poem, that should be sufficient enough. So this particular thing is theory, pure theory, and this poem particular part you can definitely cover up through one particular practical question. Is that point clear to all of you students? Siva, I have not yet taken, na? That's what I'm saying. Earth Limited. Students, this particular resale price method you will find in the ICI module also, in our capsule also. It is given this question, Earth Limited. This question, at least you ensure to deal with it. Siva, the next class would be on 147. Siva, Santini, that will be on 147. Is that point clear to all of you students now? Anything now you want to ask me, students, on the international taxation of 30 marks? Please ask me before I proceed further. Anything is bothering you, please ask me. I will try to negotiate. If it is important, I will try to tell you how to negotiate. If it is important. If not, and still you are not comfortable, I'll tell you how to try to, in this case, trash it out. Quickly, friends. You have any particular concern so far as now? International taxation is concerned for your 30 mark syllables. To be innovative, my only part is that you need to be innovative in terms of your last revision, and if it is possible, if you can do the revision in this particular way once a day before examination, it would be helpful. It does not mean that the revision has to be in one day itself. You can select few days so that there is a lot of familiarity to your approach a day before exam. This is the only thing. So maybe that you would be doing some other subject, that is perfectly fine, but my only particular point in this case is this, that my only particular point, students, in this particular case is this, that if you can handle this particular thing once at least before you hit to the examination in this particular flow, the way you want to revise it on the day before examination, this will give you that level of edge to really revise it quickly with lot of focus and direction. Otherwise, it is very important. Many students I've seen become directionless. Presumptive tax, Bhanu, I'm giving it in the PGVP. I'm not giving it over here. Now comes the other part, the NRI. Many students are asking, sir, that NRI part and the other ADR and JDR, FII, those I link it with capital gains, because in capital gains those are more related to this. So you do that thing with the capital gains, because then the capital gains part also is being addressed together. So NRI part, the FII part, I'm linking it with my capital gains ABC. So this is what it is. But the NRI and the FII, I'm linking it up with the this particular part. Presumptive taxation of 44B, 44BBA, again I'm linking it with PGBP, because that will give you more of synchronization of this particular aspect. Which deductions? Can we proceed further, students? Now let's go further, students, in this context. The next topic, students, on the priority, students, over here has to be the trust taxation. The trust tax, students, is what you will now pull it up. Now, in the trust taxation, Rajul, at the end I will tell you. Let me first wrap it up this. Trust taxation, students. First thing, students, happens to be the amendments is, the ABC means the amendments. Students, do ensure that the way the amendments has been dealt with it, so far as trust taxation is concerned, that amendments part, students, do it thoroughly. Do it thoroughly, students, the amendments particular part. In this case, students, very importantly, do the amendments thoroughly. I will share to the students who don't actually would have done the trust taxation amendments up till now thoroughly. I'll share with you this amendment particular video once. Please go through the same. That amendment part is the important part, and that is what I can say. The second in the order, students, has to be the exit tax. Exit tax question, very likely now. And the last one, students, is the total income question. So select one good question which is on the total income, which you can select it across it, or maybe herein. So practicals and practical. Okay, so I will suggest that do the practical part of it, is what primarily is the trust taxation all about. It is futile technically to do the theoretical part in this context. This is where because last time they have targeted theory, practical is the game. Apart from that, still you have earmarked some theory for you. You can just consider this at your end, but practicals is where you will find it. In this case, compared to the last attempt, this is what I'm placing it for the trust taxation this time. Apart from that, don't forget this time, students, political party exemption, political party and electoral trust exemption. This could be a surprise, students, because this particular thing, the exemption for them, please do ensure to do this. It's hardly take 2 minutes time to wrap up this particular side, but this is equally very important in this context. So therefore, this is what I would say to you as far as this particular thing is concerned. Then in this context, once this has been done with it, the next particular part, again, therefore, I told you that since you are doing only practicals, so the selected question of the practicals, if you can revise once primarily for the final time, then you switch over to your examination on these practicals, definitely is going to help to all of you. TDS and TCS, students, TDS and TCS. Students, you will, up till now you have been revising from ascending order, but here you will try to revise it from the reverse order. When I say reverse order, students, in this case TCS primarily, then in this context, the first one would be the TCS provision, that you will deal with it. The second one will be the TDS part, and in the TDS, students, this is primarily how you are going to deal with it. In the TDS particular part, students, you will find that there are provisions like 194N, 194O, 194Q. This is the first particular category. The second category, students, in this context is the conventional section of 190 TDS. Everything you have to do it technically, but still the reverse order. The second in the list in this case is 194C, 194J, 194H, 194M family. The third one, students, would be the capital gains part. The capital gains part, students, and the capital gains part, as you all would be aware, 194IA, 194IC, 194LA, and the last one, students, would be in this context herein 194DA. That is on the insurance in this regard. So do TCS, I have not listed the section. Do, if possible, TCS everything. TDS, this 3 segment I have just earmarked for all of you. And the last one, students, is herein the amendment. The amendment, students, which I'm just talking about it. Fourth in this case is the amendment which has been there. And that amendment, students, is in respect of this 194R. Remember that what it is? For your benefit and perquisite which has been given. Benefit and perquisite, students, which is provided. And second is the TDS on the virtual digital asset, VDA. TDS on the virtual digital asset. So these are the 2 points which I will suggest to all of you. You will have to deal with this one. That any case, Arunaditi is getting covered through practicals, but still if you want to do some theory earmark thing, you can do it. But as I told you, these are already there in your etched in your memory, but still we do it for our comfort level. That is up to your comfort thing. I hope that all of you have taken a note of it on the TDS with this part. So trust and TDS and TCS. By now, students, you are already have in the range of 40 to 50 marks. You have already have covered in your this thing. So in this context, friends, this is precisely 194S. Yeah, that's true. Now comes on the computational particular part, the normal particular provision which has been there, and therein itself the topic that you are going to hit upon directly would be MAT, alternate tax regime, and all it is practicals. This is a hugely a practical area, friends. This is a hugely a practical area. MAT, alternate tax regime. In this case, so MAT, alternate tax regime, and all there is no important over here. So select practical, students. Which practical to be selected? Up to you, students. I'm not selecting any practicals for you, because if supposing you would not have done it, your comfort level, whatever question that you may have dealt with it, family, those are the questions that needs to be touched upon. MAT alternate tax regime, in this case only the selected practicals, select the practicals from these particular topics. Okay, the next one over here is also the partnership assessment. The partnership assessment, and in the partnership assessment, students, in this context, when you deal with this one, always keep in mind the question that you will try to touch upon would have to have the full-fledged total income question. The total income question, students. This is exactly what, because this is what we are targeting on the total income side. After that, students, the practicals again, students, is on the capital gains. The capital gains are important. Now, this is the order, students. PGBP, you will do it later on. Please see the reverse order. You have to change your order of preparation. So here, do the tough one initially, do the easier one later on. Problem is that even on the day of the examination, I've seen students doing the easier one first, and by the time they reach to a tough level, they start finding that they don't have much of time, or suddenly their mind is so heavy that they are not in a position to recall or revise or recap. So that's one of the difficulty which students have faced during the last revision, or maybe a day before examination revision. So over here, students, what you will target majorly would be on the capital gains on the partnership, wherein we have dealt with the comprehensive case study, students, on the partnership assessment, which is about the amendment of 9A and all those stuff, 9B plus your 45.4. That is what primarily you will touch upon this one. The other particular part would be the liquidation aspect herein. This would be the second one. The third one, students, would be the business restructuring. So in that situation, in the business restructuring, technically, like you may have got the slum sale, amalgamation demerger, etc. The next one, students, again the practical side. This is again segment 2 of the practical side. In this particular case, students, you will deal with NRI, then 115 AC, 115 AD. These three. Select the questions, practical, primary, shoot it out on this three particular area. And then the last one, students, is on the theory revision on the capital gain side. Which are the cases in which you do the theory? Exemptions, 54 series. In this case, the next one, primary, students, in the case of capital gains, is this 50C. The real estate transaction. So 50C is what you do. When you do 50C, students, in this particular context, do ensure to always club this 50C with 194 IA. And because what happens, the payer of the amount will have 194 IA and 56,210, because he is a buyer. So there would be what, from the buyer perspective and from the seller perspective. 50C is for the seller who is going to transfer the capital asset, whereas the buyer who is going to purchase the asset for which he is going to make the payment, 194 IA and 56,210 is what would be involved in that case. So that is the theoretical part which you will deal with. It practical not required any case in this regard, in this context. And virtual digital asset, VDA, whatever discussion that I have taken you through with on the VDA, restrict only on that. VDA don't do as a capital gains provision. Okay, hold on. I forgot one thing. Herein also insurance, the 45(1)(b). In this regard, shouldn't just do the insurance particular part. VDA, in this context, there is a, what is virtual digital asset? Meaning has got no relevance. only two things that you should be very careful on the VDA, and the two things are the special rate of tax and the TDS provision, which you already have told 194S. This is where you focus on the VDA part. This is where you focus on the VDA part, students, and that is what I will suggest you to get into this. Next one, students, after this, please do first proviso to section 48. What is this first proviso to section 48? Wherein the non-resident, we all are aware, the first proviso to section 48 is applicable to a non-resident who is purchasing the shares and debentures, because last attempt they have targeted first proviso heavily in their examination. Chances are less, and therefore I'm taking it very down. Chances of first proviso to 48 is very less, therefore I'm taking it very down. So therefore, last in your theory list has to be first proviso. Last in your theory list has to be the first proviso in this context. So therefore, students, in this context, this particular part which has been there, which I told you about the non-resident who is using the foreign currency to purchase and sell the securities of an Indian company, then in that case, the capital gains would be computed by conversion the Indian rupee into foreign currency, and then thereafter reconverting the foreign currency into Indian rupee. That is what we all are aware. So this is what the first proviso to section 48 would be all about, isn't it? 112A, long-term capital gains on the transfer of recognized stock exchange. 111A, short-term capital gains, and thereafter, friends, finally ended up with the joint development agreement, JDA, which is in respect of your 45 5A, business theory, which has been there, 45 5A. After that, 45 5, 45 5, students, is for the compulsory acquisition. Compulsory acquisition. And the last one is the insurance on destruction of asset. Insurance on destruction of asset. This is how you will do it last. The sequence would be going like this for the capital gains part. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. Once the capital gain is done, friends, PGBP would be done last. You'll say, sir, why are you saying PGBP would... No, hold on. After this, friends, you will be doing profit link deductions. Deductions and clubbing of income. Clubbing of income, this attempt is very important, students. I'm putting PGBP last. You can just imagine, family. You'll say, sir, PGBP is not important. It's actually very important. But you have to cover up the remaining topics on the order, because PGBP is revised effect already through the MAT partnership assessment at total income questions and also the other thing. So 40% of a PGBP is already done. 40% of a PGBP students is already done. You don't have to worry much on that. So therefore, in this context, the ideal way to look into it is that deduction in this case, herein, which deduction? The profit link deduction. The profit link deduction. Friends, by the way, if you can just mark one thing over here, in this case, the profit link deduction, one question is there. I just want all of you to take a note of it. In the alternate tax regime, before I forget that question, in my Super 61 question is there, students. I just want all of you to do that question without fail. Which question I'm just letting you all know. In the alternate tax regime, this is in respect of the cooperative society. One question is there, students, on the cooperative society, which would be question number 59. So please, can you mark this one, students? One thing over here. Apart from this, like you do at least in this, students, alternate tax regime. In this one question, I'm marking for all of you, and that question, students, happens to be plus whatever question you would have selected in this case, question number herein. question 58. In Super 60, question 58. In Super 60, question 58. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. In Super 60, question number 58. Okay. Profit introduction. Thereafter, students, 80 double J double A. Okay. 80 QQB. In this case, 80D. 80D. 80 TTA. 80 TTP. 80C you will remember, don't worry. So I'm not even writing 80C in this context. Thereafter, students, the clubbing of income, only the practicals. You will refer it once. This clubbing of income this week I'll do with all of you once. The clubbing of income, only practicals. So we'll revise through practical, students. Only practicals. That is the point for the clubbing of income. And students, if you can just add this topic of set off also in this list. Set off, deductions and clubbing of income. In set off, 73, 72A, 78 and 79. Here you can do, in this case, students, case studies and practicals. Case studies and practicals rather than doing theory. Case studies are already there. For all these particular sections, the case studies are already there. So case studies and practicals is what you should target in this context, and this is what it is. Thereafter, students, you have to come towards the assessment side. Assessment, penalties, revision, appeals, etc. Here, students, you'll do the first one would be the provisional attachment of property. Again, the reverse order, students. Please see the hierarchy here. Here, the hierarchy is important. Next, students, would be the penalties. Next, students, would be the penalty. Next would be the penalty. Thereafter, students, there is one particular question on the tax recovery. I think it is there in the Super 60 also, which has been there. Just a second. Just a second on this. The question that you will be touching upon. Here, actually, you use Super 60, students. Super 60 will be helpful for all of you for this side of the syllabus. For this side of the syllabus, students. In fact, first I'll just say over here for this side, do Super 60 questions properly. Because at least one thing would be there over here, students, would be that not only one, every question. So any case assessment is due for this thing. Do Super 60 questions thoroughly. So all the practicals, primary students, will get covered up. All the practical, because I think the case study ICI would be targeting the similar way in which it has been given to all of you. So my suggestion, instead of marking any one particular area, I will suggest to you to do the Super 60 case study thoroughly, which has been there. Thereafter, friends, you can just mark. So first is do Super 60 questions thoroughly. Now, since you people would be doing the Super 60, you would have done it, or no, you would be doing it the Super 60 this week. So at least this portion would be done very thoroughly on that question, so that all of you are comfortable with this particular part on the Super 60 particular area of this. Okay. Thereafter, on the theoretical part, 147 is what is extra required to be done. The remaining penalty, the remaining portion of penalty. Okay, that is the second. Remaining portion of penalties I've written. Updated return of income. The amendment part, updated return, students, very important this time. But MCQ type of questions would only be asked. So that is the amendment which has been there on the updated return. After this, students, on the appeals, the theory part is important in the appeals, and the revision, the theoretical side. Dispute resolution committee, double AR. Now, case studies part from this is going to get covered in your Super 60. Dispute resolution committee and double AR. So these are the theoretical side which students you will always touch upon carefully. These are the theoretical side. Appeals, revision, DRC and double AR. So these are the theoretical particular side of the syllabus which you will try to deal with it. As I told you, in this context, first hit the case studies from the Super 60. This should be the approach. Second is 147. Third is this. Fourth is this. And fifth is this. Is that not clear to all of you? Every one of you are clear with this one? In this context? So this is how you will be dealing with this particular part, students. This is how you all will be dealing with this particular part on this particular context. So the sequence is now known to all of you, students. This side of syllabus. With that now, students, once this has been done, students, the last particular area now, which you will now touch upon would be on the PGVP. AMT I'm not even writing, because AMT is the simplest of the entire lot. So the sequence of the section, students, as I can tell you, same way sectorial. Those who have done the sectorial with me, I would have told you the approach. Do these big sections, students, and that is how you are going to deal with this. 33 AB, 3618. Thereafter 3617. Banking company is very important this time, students. And banking company. So this ideally through a practical. This could be theory. That is perfectly fine. No practicals required. 3617A. Then 44C. And then 44A. This side. The next particular category, students, over here. Again theory. Theory of what? 35D. Thereafter rule 8. Sorry. Rule 9A9B. Rule 9A9B. Rule 9A9B. 35 DDA. That should be all. The fourth one, students, in this case, is 35 AD. This is through the practical route. 35 AD. 35 AD, 35, 35 triple C, 35 CCA, and 35 CCD. This is the fourth route. And the last one, students, is the presumptive income. The last one, students, is the presumptive income. In the presumptive income, students, for resident, the two sections, 44 AD, three sections by the way, 44 ADA and 44 E. For the non-resident, it is 44 B, 44 double B, and 44 BB. That exactly what it is, students. After that, students, it is up to your this thing. This is also a practicals that you will directly refer and finish it off rather than doing the theory. Practicals is what you will do it and wrap it up, students. Don't waste time in this one. If time now permits, if time permits, students, then disallowances theory and depreciation theory. That is it, students. Disallowances and depreciation theory. Is that point clear to all of you? Fine, students. Once this has been done with it, balance amendments of Finance Act, which may not have captured up till now. Balance amendments of the Finance Act. So this is what it is. You can twist the order, students. Actually, this ABC is more about the study approach, primarily as to how you revise for the last time. Rather than telling you this is this and this is that, I think the flow is more important as to how you will do it and deal with it. The reason of the direct tax paper, why it becomes difficult towards the end, is students' revision goes in the same style, the way actually they have learnt and the way they have revised earlier. But when you are doing a last revision or a day before examination revision, you need to be a bit innovative. And the way to do it is this particular flow. You just ensure, students, one by one, select the things which I have told to you. As I told you, the sequence you can now, because obviously you cannot leave, like for example, assessment. You have to do it. So if supposing students, some feel that no, this portion is my week, so I'll try to prepone it. If this is what is your this thing, you can change the sequence, up to you. But the way to do it is this particular way that you need to deal with it. Is that one clear to all of you? Now, if there are any particular question, students, now one last particular my feeder students on the because of this one. Although I would, this is not which has been there again. Those who are joined late, again I'm telling you, I am actually suffering from the COVID particular part, and therefore, students, last you can say a week or so has been dreadful at my side. So I would be now, in any case, I've regained the strength. Still, it is a positive state of COVID, but nevertheless, what it was earlier and what it is now, there is now a bit of this thing improvement. So definitely this coming week, I will be covering up these particular remaining areas of the fast track, which I've already told to all of you. So that would be done, like assessment, balance 147 and onwards, this thing, and the last one would be the PGVP clubbing of income. These are the things which I will cover it up, so just bear with that particular part. And the last particular point is the examination particular thing. Answer sheet also, I think we have shared it. If not shared, I will share it tonight. Then the super 50-60 answer sheet, we have shared the answer sheet. If you have not got it, then I will share it again in my Telegram channel as well as over uh, Telegram channel. Telegram channel is DURGESH SINGH. So students, one particular Super 60 answer as well. Super 60, the tomorrow students, Super 60 I am doing 9:30 would be in the morning, Super 60. So tomorrow Super 60 would be on the, tomorrow Super 60 students would be on the assessment part. The assessment particular part is what I'm going to target. This particular side is what I'm going to target, and on the practicals part of it. So that is the Super 60 for tomorrow, family, which has been there. Okay, so Super 60 students tomorrow. I'm coming to 6C. Just hold on, students. Just first let me complete this particular part. Students, one big challenge is about paper completion. Yeah, Aditi, it has got question for both. One is about the paper completion for the students. Students are not in a position to complete the papers. This is a real challenge because they attempt wrongly. 15 minutes time to just in this larger audience, I'm just telling to all of you, 15 minutes time, don't read the MCQ part, the extra time that you get. I think you don't get even the MCQ part. You are getting the descriptive part of the paper, students. Yes, Adit. Descriptive part, students. In the descriptive part, students, barring question number one, when you do 15 minutes, students, the first 10 minutes, students, you should be in a position to select two best questions. Select two best questions that you know. It could be more than two. If the paper is simple, it could be more than two, but two full question. Now, two full question, students, it would mean that possibilities are there that out of the two full question, maybe that you may not come to know, say, one question I don't know B, another question I don't know C, say for example. But as far as the other questions are concerned, I am knowing only one question, other questions and other part of the question I'm not sure. So your two best question, students, in this case would be, say, at least out of the three parts, I'm giving you the minimum benchmark. At least out of the three parts, A, B, and C, out of one question, you should be knowing at least two questions. So this is the case. The ideal scenario is you know all the three, and it is turned up. But let's take up the least of the scenario. The point what I'm trying to say is that descriptive question, students, if you do it initially, it gets you more marks because you are any case slow. I don't want you to be slow initially only on the MCQ part. MCQ part you have to be very fast. Your mind should really be on the third gear. You cannot be in the first gear. First gear, if you have to be, you have to ensure that you are also covering that much number of marks when you are in your first gear. And that is the reason why I told you that select those particular questions which you know the best, and that should be your approach. That is point number one. The next 5 minutes out of the 15 minutes which is allotted, students, the next 5 minutes which is there out of the 15 minutes which has been allotted, students, please make it a point to go through question number one. Why you have to go through question number one? Now, how do you go through question number one? I'll tell you how to go through question number one. Because question number one always is compulsory, you have to do it irrespective whatever it will be there. Now you say, but sir, 5 minutes, why you say so? Please at least read this thing. In question number one, the first 2 to 3 lines, which says that a limited question or partnership, you will come to know. And in that question number one, the next is the last line of the question, so that at least you know what exactly they have targeted. Many times they are asking MAT, many a time they're asking alternate tax regime. So at least you know how you are supposed to think. Once you know that, thereafter students, at least adjustment part, if not additional information. The problem is that when you read the additional information, there you have to think. I've seen that. But when it comes to the adjustment, add and less, primarily you will know what to do. So at least you have processed your mind to those adjustments, what exactly to be done in these cases. Chances are there that the additional information you may not have read it, time are not there. You may in any case, because once the question will come, you have to do it. You have to any case, you will have to read it. At that time, you start with the additional information because you know many of the things, and that's what it is. So question number one, you should at least do the first 2 3 lines reading, last line reading, and the initial adjustments. Additional information, even though you may not have time, you can just skip it later on, and when you start later on, then already you've processed it, run through the question very quickly, and then additional information, immediately come to the additional information after running through the question quickly, and that is where you will be in a position to solve this question number fast. Students, question number one is a critical one for all of us. If supposingly, students, MCQ and the case studies, integrated case studies are tricky, my suggestion is this, that if it is tricky, do it towards the end. If it is average, you can try to do it somewhere in between. Maybe after 1 hour, 1.5, 1 hour, after 1 hour, you can think of it. But my thought only is this, that students are not getting good marks in direct tax because the question that they otherwise know, like for example, question number one, total income, they are not in a position to write their reasons properly. Reasons need not be elaborative, but at least as per section 43B, deduction is allowed when the payment is made. At least write that sentence in your own words, though, but properly. So those, whatever you know, you are not getting good marks of that, because the steps marking which they do it, the fact that you have not done a good justice, you are not in a position to get a good marks. Second point. For the remaining descriptive questions, students, for the remaining descriptive questions, this is my approach for all of you. As I told you, say question number 7, I know A part thoroughly. B and C I don't know. Okay, but A I know it properly. If I know A properly, I will ensure to write this A properly, leaving space for B and C. Leaving space for B and C. Or I know B properly, I don't know A and C. So let's leave the space for A, write properly for B, and write properly for C. What you know properly should be attempted first, and then you come to those unknown areas which you are unsure of it. As far as the MCQ is concerned, primarily, this should be the first, integrated case study should be the second in the priority, because this takes time. And you will be in a position to by now understand, by now the time that you is there at your disposal, you would know how to read the integrated case study fast. Like for example, integrated case study, generally it is better to first read what, not the theory, but what is the question which has been asked. And that is how you will then read the question, because then your mind is already conditioned as to what are the unrelated, unwanted data which I need to trash out. So therefore, whenever you do the case studies, this part, this after the MCQ, because MCQ, if it, you see that depreciation calculation, this much big MCQ is there, and by looking into it itself, you'll know it requires calculation, then better to skip it, because it may have only 1 marks. So therefore, that wisdom is required. That wisdom you will never get initially, because initially you may not have covered your ground at all. So when the students start with the MCQ without covering any ground, they unnecessarily venture into those trap questions, which although you may get it right, but it would have killed your 5 to 10 minutes time in getting that particular solution, which may not be worth it. So that wisdom is very important, that you need to have, and that can only happen when you have at least have the baggage of some 50 to 50 marks attempt, 50 marks or 40 to 50 marks of your attempt, or 30 to 50 marks of your attempt. If you already have done, you will be much wiser to now start attempting the MCQ and the integrated case study. Integrated case study, I have told you already that the big case studies which are being there, probably you should see if it is an unknown case study for you. The ideal way to address the unknown case study is to hit directly what exactly is the question, and on that basis start searching the relevant paragraph of the particular question, and that is how you negotiate on this way. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Now with this, students, paper 6C, Dhananjay, model convention, you people, those who have got 6C, I will suggest you, if supposedly you people would have done the case studies which has been there on the day of the examination, sir, should I be doing case studies? If you have marked some of the case studies, like some of the case study would have carried some good questions of black money, some good questions on the model convention, those new topics at least, those new topic students at least, or some part of the case study has got a good particular coverage of say transfer pricing, of say some double taxation avoidance agreement, or say of section 9. So those particular relevant part, if you have filtered, it is good, or if not filter, then leave it. But the 6C students should try to first target the new set of area which has been there, and then again you should focus more on the tax rates, because their tax liabilities are required to be calculated on that time, and therefore in the capital gains topics there are a lot of tax rates which are given towards the end. That is one of the things that you should be very careful about it thereafter. But that after you have done the new topics, model conventions, the theory part of it, and the black money, once those are being done, then it is better to switch to the conventional areas. And the conventional areas, I told you, focus on the tax rates, focus on section 9, and thereafter equalization levy. These are the three important particular things. Section 9, the tax rates which are there in the capital gains, equalization levy. These are the common areas which I've already told to all of you. Okay. And if out of your case studies that is there, if you've already have earmarked some portion of the practicals, that this is very good in this case study, the black money is good in this case study, this is good, something of that, but not the entire question. You cannot afford to read the entire question, at least on the day before examination. So case study revision, you keep it towards the end. First, try to cover up all these grounds, which I've already told to all of you, and this should be the approach so far as the 6C is concerned. Is that point clear to all of you students now? I will share the Super 60 particular answer sheet, students. Okay, so 9:30 tomorrow morning, students. Super 60 assessment procedure part. At least I'll be wrapping it up for all of you, along with some other particular area, but at least assessment I'm committing to all of you 9:30 in the morning. Okay, students. I'll see you then, students, in this case. Fine. See you then, students, tomorrow morning. I'll share the PDF file with all of you in the Telegram channel and the WhatsApp group. Take care, friends. Good night. And sorry for this particular last week particular scenario on the COVID particular front. On this one, so could not be at the best of my health and all, and that is precisely the point, that arbitrariness was found in the last week sessions.